Okay, we're going to review the ways that you can invite or have virtual meetings with students using Google Meet. There's a couple of things that we can do, and what might happen is, especially with parent conferences coming up around the corner, you might have students that attend conferences through a calendar invite, which is okay for that event, but we're going to want to show you how we can make sure that we stay safe and secure with those events. So the easiest and best way to set up your meeting spaces for your students is through your Google Classroom. Even if you're a K1, K2, and you don't use Google Classroom, you still can use Google Classroom for the meeting link itself. So what you're going to want to do is open up Google Classroom, and all of our students have a Google account. They don't have email addresses at the younger grades, but they do have a Google account, and you can set up and create a meeting event for them. If you don't use Google Classrooms, I'm going to pretend like I've never used Google Classroom. I don't have anything to do with it. I can go to create a class. And what I'm going to do is just create my class, and you can create your classes for anything. You can have small groups. It can be, this is my group one, group two, group three. You can call your classes whatever you want, because really what you're doing is setting up and making an event for them. And so what I'm going to do is I go in and I'm going to create this. This is going to be my test um, breakout. So I can use this as a breakout room even. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my test breakout room. And this is going to create my class. Now you can create as many Google classes as you want. So you can have your A-Day kids, your B-Day kids, your advisory kids. Now, if you're already using Google Classroom, your Google Classrooms for your kids have Meet codes that are built into them. And so we can set up, and you can use the existing Meet codes for your DigCit period 1 or your fundamentals period 2. So the first thing that we're going to do is turn on and generate the Meet link for this class or for your existing Google classes. So I'm going to create a Google Meeting link. I'm going to click Generate a Meeting link. And you can either make this visible to students. It really doesn't matter. If your students use Google Classroom, you definitely want to make it visible to them, because then you can tell them, hey, we're going to go to our meeting link for our class at our predetermined times. So I can tell my test breakout kids, if I'm using Google Classroom, hey, you're going to go to your breakout at this time, and you're going to do and join this class at this time. So if I didn't have used Google Classroom, what we're going to do is I'll show you how we're going to save or copy that link. So what we're going to do is go over to our People tab. And this is where, if you've already got the Google Classroom, you're going to have your students in here. I'm going to invite a student. I'm going to show you the different ways here. So I'm going to invite, I've got a test student, but we're going to invite test student B. And so I'm going to invite this test student B to this class. Now, if I was a teacher that used this Google Classroom all the time, I would tell my test student B, hey, when it's time for your class to join, you're going to join you're going to join for your class, and you're going to go in at your predetermined time. And so I am logging in right now as a student, and I'm joining this class to show that I'm in there. And so all they would do is they hit the join button. So if they don't have an email or anything like that, they can join, or we can get them in there so that the student is a part of the class. So now what we've got with this is, now that my student is in here, I am going to go in and, yeah, I don't want to use the class or anything like that, but I've got my Google Meet. And what you can do is go in with this Google Meet, and when you create or join this meeting, students cannot join if you're not already in the meeting. Now, one of the things that's important to note is that when I'm, like right now, I'm in the lobby. This is technically in the meeting. So students can now join the meeting. And I would see, once somebody else gets in there and they get in there, but I am in the meeting as it is right now. Now, I won't hear what's going on. I would see right up here where it says no one else is here, it would tell me who else is in the meeting, but I would not have any audio or video or record of what was being said, because I'm not in the meeting. So you definitely don't want to hang out in this lobby area when you're setting up or creating a meeting. When I get in, I'm going to hit and join the meeting. So I'm going to start this meeting up. So the meeting is going now that my meeting is set up. So I want to be in here. So I'm going to just turn this camera off for this, and we'll mute the microphone there. But so we're getting everything in here, and my student now is going to join. And so I can have my student join. and my student will get in and join this meeting. And so now that I'm in the meeting, the student will get it. So you might get that the student can't get in. Let's mute the student here. There we go. And so now my student is in this, the test student is now in this class. There's a couple of things that you can do when you're in here, when you get into your meeting. The first one is that down here at the bottom now, we're going to go over, you've got your host controls. So with the host controls, what I can do, I can turn this off. So if somebody is not in the meeting, they have to ask to join. This includes other teachers or other people so that you can get this. So this is just a brand new. Google Meet is rolling out lots of good features. This is even in addition from the last host controls that we've got. I can also change from the host side of it. Can everybody share their screen? Can they send a chat message? Those are the things that we can do. From my view side of the screen, if I go over here and I look at my view side of the screen, I can change my layout. Now, students can change their layout as well, and we can't really force their layout to be a layout that we want. By default, you can set it to be an auto layout, where it will automatically will get your settings saved to where you want it to be. So you might want to talk to your students about how you want them to be. Spotlight is probably the best for students, and what Spotlight is going to do, once they set it to Spotlight and saves to Spotlight, that will give it to where whoever is speaking is going to be the primary focus and take up all of their screen. If you have the sidebar, you have whoever is speaking is the large part of the screen, and then tiled are whatever the most recent chat participants were or participants were. Tiled will allow them to see everybody. Now, one of the things this just hit is we can change our tile now up to 49. So I can adjust when I go to my tiled. 16 is a default, but I can adjust this all the way to 49 participants. So you as a teacher now can adjust your tiled setting to where you get a grid of 7 by 7. Makes them pretty small, I'll be honest with you, on your Chromebook. They're pretty small, but you can get 49 users in your tiles. Student side, I would probably tell them to try to put it at Spotlight or Sidebar and leave it there as you've got it. Once you get them into this meeting, I can go to the chat, and this is where I can see everybody, up to 250 participants. I can unmute people, I can mute them, I can force the mute. So what I can do is, if I needed to, if this student unmuted, I could go in and mute that student so that student has been muted from the meeting. I can also, if I needed to, I can remove the student from the meeting. If you remove a student from a meeting and you remove them from that meeting, they have to be re-invited back to the meeting. You're essentially blocking them. So if I remove test student from the meeting, I would have to re-invite test student back into my meeting. This, unenroll from the class and re-enroll the student, I'd have to re-invite the student. So when I remove a student, it's not just removing them for today, you're banning them from that meeting. So be very careful about, when you do that. You might need to do that, but if somebody needs to come back in, this is a safety feature to make sure that they're not, you kick them out of the meeting and then they just jump right back into the meeting. So you would have to re-invite the student back into the meeting so that you've got that. When I get done, it is super important that you are making sure that everybody leaves the meeting before you leave the meeting, right? So I'm going to be done with the meeting and I say, okay, I'm done with this meeting and I'm going to end this meeting. Now, test student hasn't left this meeting, so I'm going to close this out. Test student has not left this meeting. I go back into here, and test student and whatever students might still be there are still in the meeting, right? Test student B is already in there because they did not leave. What you have to do is say, okay, everybody, goodbye. Go ahead and sign off. It's time for you to leave. And then you would make sure the test student, if you need to walk them through, center of your console at the bottom, you're going to hit the red handset to hang up. And once all of my students have left the meeting, then you would leave the meeting and you would end the call. That is a super important feature because you need to make sure that you have left the meeting so that your students do not stay in or hang out or go around into the meeting. The next way that you can create a meeting, a little bit less work for you, but it has some problems with it. Is I can go into the Google Meet lobby and I can create a meeting and I can give this meeting a nickname, and I can just call this meeting nickname. And I give this passcode out to my students, and students again can join the meeting, have all the same controls. They can't join without me being in there. I have to make sure that they've all left. The problem with this is if they spell nickname wrong, or they put an extra K, or they put an extra I, or they're not getting it right, they won't be able to get into the meeting. So with the Google Classroom, your roster is your attendance ticket. With the Google Meet passcode or the nickname, it's a passcode that students must type in, and they must type it in exactly to make sure that they can get into the meeting. The last way to create a meeting, and this is the one that we don't want to do, or if you have done it, how do we fix it or make it? And it just causes a little bit more work. Is I invited a student on a Google Calendar. So I created a Google Calendar event, and I invited a test student here to this meeting. So I invited a test student, created a Google Meet, and I've made a Google Meet for that student. This is super convenient when you do want to meet with the students, because it puts it on, if they go to Google Meet, it puts it on their calendar and it gives them where their meeting time is. But here's the problem. I'm jumping over to my other computer here as test student. I am not currently in the meeting. Test student can open up Google Meet. So I'm logged in now as test student on another device. Test student opens up the meet, and test student can join, and I am test student already in this Google meeting. So it says no one else is here, and test student is now in and started this meeting. So now when I don't have those same controls where a student can't join a meeting until I'm there if I don't set it up by either using a nickname or Google Classroom roster. So if I go into this meeting now and I see test student and I go in to join with Meet, lo and behold, I see that test student is already in this meeting. So test student is already in this call. So whatever students that you've got, the other thing that can happen is test student can copy that meeting link, share that meeting link with others, and others can join once they get the link. There are no breaks or restrictions on that meeting. Test student can go back to this meeting and open it up at any time as long as they have the link, as long as they have the meeting. Maybe this has happened. You've set up a calendar invite and you've talked and you've invited students through it. How do we fix this? So the easiest way to fix this is you have the students leave the meeting. You make sure that nobody's in the meeting. I'm going to end the call. I'm going to end this meeting. And then what you need to do is go to your Google Calendar where this event is, and I need to delete this event. When you delete the event, you're deleting the Google Meet code that goes along with it. So it removes it from the students' Meet links, and it no longer makes it as a viable Google Meeting link. So if you have invited students to Google Meet through calendar invites, you definitely want to go, when you're done with that meeting with the students, you definitely want to go back or after parent conferences and delete out those meeting links so that students cannot continue to use those or create a virtual space where they aren't supervised during a Google Meeting event. I hope this helps clarify how Google Meets work and how best to set them up to support the needs of your students and families.